And there was this huge wall of sludge. It was about 40 meters high. It was very, very high, to the height of the top of palm trees, and it was just coming very, very fast towards the hotel.
Meet Juliet, a UK citizen who's been residing in Singapore for 30 years. During our talk, she shared her terrifying experience surviving the 2004 Indian Ocean Tsunami, the tragedy of losing her husband, and how she eventually overcome the stress and grief. I'm Max. Let's hear the compelling story.
We were in Khao Lak in Thailand, which is just north of Phuket, and we had been invited there by mutual friends who had shares in a new boutique hotel that was opening in Khao Lak. We were divorced at the time. We got divorced 2 years before, and I decided a week before to go with the children. They were going with Simon, my husband at the time, ex-husband. So there were about 25 of us all in Khao Lak in this hotel, and it was Boxing Day, so 26th of December 2004. We weren't able to stay in the boutique hotel that was being built because it wasn't quite ready, so we all had to stay in the Khao Lak Orchid Beach Resort, which was on the main beach in Khao Lak. So we weren't supposed to be there. However, it saved some of our lives because it was the only building that was 3 stories high and that had steel foundations. All the other buildings in Khao Lak were single story, and they all got wiped out. So I had woken up actually about 8:30 in the morning to rattling of the glass, which was the earthquake that actually had happened many, many miles away. Thought no more of it. I went down to breakfast with my 2 girls who were aged 13 and 7 at the time. Came back upstairs, and Simon was going downstairs with Charlie, who was my son, who was 10 at the time. And we were in it was a typical big Thai hotel with a very high roof for the entrance hall. In fact, it was the hotel that was used in the film The Impossible, because that movie was actually made by a Spanish family. They didn't lose anyone, but Hollywood made it an English family. But that was filmed at the hotel we were staying at. I went down to sit by the swimming pool, and in fact, we had sat at the front of the pool the previous few days, and some people were already sitting there, so we went and sat at the back, which probably saved our lives. I was just sitting down when I heard like a roar, like a jet plane, and I stood up and turned around, and then there was this huge wall of sludge. It looked like sludge. It was about 40 meters high. It was very, very high, to the height of the top of palm trees, and it was just coming very, very fast towards the hotel.
How far the hotel was from the seashore?
It was literally, you had the beach, you had trees, there was a road, and then the hotel started. So then there was the swimming pool, and then some villas, and then the main hotel behind. And I said to my daughter, Lucy, who was 13 at the time, we need to get up, meaning we need to get above this huge wall of water that's coming very quickly.
And you understood like straight away that it's a tsunami?
No, not straight away. My first thoughts were, why is the sewage coming so quickly? Because you hear reports of sewage being pumped into the water, into the sea. Yeah. And then it was coming so quickly, and in my periphery vision you could see people screaming and running, and it was coming really quickly. Lucy grabbed Georgia, my youngest daughter, who's 7 at the time. She grabbed her out of the baby pool, and they started running towards the hotel. Our rooms were actually on the 3rd level, so they instinctively knew, or Lucy knew, where to run, and everybody was kind of running. And I remember standing there, I saw one of our friends running across the gardens towards us, because her family were all in the villa next to where we had been sitting. Simon, my husband, and my son were having breakfast at the time, and like a lot of people, we found out later, as the water had receded, a lot of people who didn't know about tsunamis at the time started to walk down towards the beach to see what was going on. So a lot of people got caught and got hit by the wave that came, obviously came back. We went up on top of the roof, so a lot of people were trying to get up on top of the roof. And then, the second wave came in, and then the 3rd wave. And when we were up on the roof, I knew it was a tsunami, because I've learned about tsunamis. I knew instinctively it was a tsunami. But there were people screaming and people being stuck in the trees, because the water came in at the top of the 2nd level, if you like. So it's the ceiling height of the 2nd level. third level wasn't touched, so we were okay on the roof. That was at about 10:30 in the morning it happened, and the water didn't recede till about 3 in the afternoon, didn't start receding till about then. So all you could see were cars and like washing machines and people, as you see on subsequent kind of videos like the Japanese tsunami. But people back in 2004 didn't have smartphones, weren't taking videos, so there wasn't much footage of actually what happened. I was there with my two daughters, and it was about an hour later, and we were sitting right on top of the roof, and my son, Charlie, who was 10 at the time, he came up through the hatch in the roof, because lots of people were kind of being rescued and coming at different times, and he came up onto the roof, and I just thought, I have all my kids. I've got my kids. Simon was a 6'2" fit, strapping kind of ex-army officer. I thought he would be doing what we did, kind of somewhere on a roof somewhere. But it turns out that he used to wear glasses, and he was blind as a bat without his glasses, and I think they got hit by the wave. And my son, recalls that they were kind of washed to the top of the roof of the inside of the reception area, and then when the second wave hit, they were kind of sucked out, I suppose, of the door. My son shouldn't be here today because he recalls sort of swimming towards the light, and then getting up to the surface, and of course the wave was coming at 200 miles an hour. It was very, very quick, and he was swimming to the top of a palm tree. Two guys, I think they were workers from the hotel who were on the corner of the roof in another part of the hotel, grabbed Charlie as he was being swept past, and that's how he was saved. Otherwise, he wouldn't be here today. So, but we never found Simon. So he's one of the, I think, 400 missing still. So we don't know what happened to him. His last words to my son were, "You're a very brave boy." And that was before they were swept out of the side. So, yeah.
I always thought like it's the worst situation when you lose someone, but you never know like 100%, like 99%, you know 100% that he's gone.
They always had hope, obviously for months, even years. Even now, if you actually said to my kids, they would still have that glimmer of hope that maybe he was hit on the head. He lost his memory, he survived and is living somewhere. I think obviously they realise he's not now, but for many, many months, and it was obviously very, very tough, kind of telling them, weeks and weeks later that, Daddy's probably not going to be coming home. He's not going to be found.
So how was it then? Then you were rescued from?
Well, then there were about, I suppose, 40 of us on the top of the roof. Of course, as the water receded after about 3 o'clock, you could see all the devastation. I mean, everything had been completely wiped out. There were dead bodies kind of here and there, and people, we realised it was a tsunami. The hotel was about 2 miles in from the main road, and then closer to about 5 o'clock, of course, the sun was starting to go down, and people were like, okay, well, what are we going to do? And then there were some people who were, I think they were locals, who were coming into the hotel and kind of shouting, the water's coming back, we need to get out. People were quite worried about being looted. The hotel was going to be looted. A group of about 25 of us, as it was getting dark, we decided we would leave the hotel because you could go down. So we just literally grabbed what we had. As I said, our rooms were on the 3rd level, so ironically, I was able to get into our rooms, get our passports, get a plastic bag each for the kids, and we left the hotel and we all started walking towards the main road. We had no idea where we were going. Obviously there was no power, everything was out for days. We got to the main road, the kind of tsunami had come in up to the main road pretty much. So all that part was completely devastated. On the other side of the main road, nothing had happened. It hadn't got that far. So the water hadn't got that far. So there were cars driving along the road, and this Dutch man who was driving in a car stopped and asked a couple of us kind of where we'd come from, what we were doing. And this man, who was an absolute angel, he took everybody in to his house. He was married to a Thai. And they had a beautiful house that was on the other side of the road. And we stayed there for, I think, another 2 days, at least 2 days. There was no power, nobody, obviously no phones. I had an old Nokia, but there was no signal, obviously. And this guy took us in, and we lived there for 25 of us lived there for 2 days.
How you managed to like rebuild your life back and get your life back after this happened?
Day by day. Just day by day. My sole purpose in getting through each day was being there for my kids, because they were 13, 10 and 7. We just have to keep the routine the same, keep everything going. I didn't even think of leaving Singapore, because when you're in that sort of traumatic or shock, I suppose we were in shock, all of us, for months and months, maybe years. So it was just day by day, and then just getting through each day, really.
How you decided to send your kids when they were 14, yeah? You sent them back to the UK?
Well, in fact, my eldest daughter, after the tsunami, she was 13, and we'd got divorced, and then the tsunami happened. She lost her father. She was a teenager and very angry at the world, angry at me. Completely understandable. And she wanted to get away from Singapore. She wanted to go to school in the UK. So that kind of triggered the decision to send her to boarding school in the UK. And also I wanted the children to have some roots in the UK and get to know their grandparents.
Can you tell about this London accident in 2019, with what happened with your youngest daughter?
My youngest daughter, Georgia. She, in 2019, September, she was 22, and she was involved in an accident in Clapham Common, just behind the tube station. She was crossing the road, like millions of people do, rushing to get a bus, and she stepped into the road and was hit by a double-decker bus that was coming away from the bus stop. She was hit in her foot, half her foot came off during the accident. We were very lucky, obviously, not to lose her. We were very lucky that she's still here, and it was just her foot. But she had to have her lower right leg amputated as a result. So it was a very, very tough, traumatic time. And obviously I was here in Singapore when it happened, and I got the phone call from my eldest daughter, Lucy, who called me. I managed to get on a plane the next day, so I was able to be in London sort of very quickly before Georgia had the operation. It's probably the hardest, that's the toughest thing. I know we've been through the tsunami. I've lost, the children's father was killed in the tsunami, but for me as a mother, when your child goes through something, it's by far the hardest thing. But Georgia has been quite incredible. She's an inspiration to everybody. She will say that she wouldn't change anything that's happened to her because it's made her a better person. And she was saying that 2 days after she had her leg amputated, and she'll still say that now. And she motivates people and she wants to motivate and help people. She's incredible. So she's now 25, so we're 3.5 years on, and she has a prosthetic leg. She's now a model. She's an advocate for motivating people who are having problems and issues with their body, and especially young people. She's signed to an agency called Zebedee Talent, and they specialise in diversity. And so she's doing a lot of different shoots and reaching out to different people in that way. With George's accident, Lucy and Charlie, my other 2 children, it was traumatic for them because it brought back the trauma that we had been through before. It kind of comes back, so you're dealing with the same sort of shock and trauma, and they're all incredible how they've actually been able to navigate their way through life.
Have you ever had this thought, why me? Why it happened to me, to my family?
I've never ever questioned why me, why us. Shit happens to people, bad things happen to people. I've never really felt sorry for me. I felt sorry for my kids because they've had to go through an awful lot, which children shouldn't have to go through. But I suppose I never think about the past. I don't think about yesterday. I've been doing a lot of, especially since George's accident, I've been doing a lot of trying to help myself in mindfulness and meditation and trying to be present in today, and there's no point in dwelling on the past. You can't change the past, you can't change what's happened to you. All you can do is enjoy the present, because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So, but no, I've never kind of wondered why us. I mean, far worse things happen to other people. So, you know, it's part of life.